it's kind of like becoming Batman. But instead of fighting crime, you're fighting confusion. So it's like basically Batman, but with like highlighters and a self-care routine. What's up, you beautiful beasts? In today's video, I'm going to teach you how to read scientific studies without a PhD and without a panic attack. Before we dive in, quick disclaimer. I am not a doctor or a scientist. No lab coat, no clipboard, no letters after my name that involve prescribing anything. I am an NASM certified personal trainer and nutritionist who's committed to evidence-based practice. And yes, I read research papers for fun. This video isn't to deep dive into every study out there. It's a beginner-friendly guide to help you understand how to actually read the study. Because we're going to reference science, we should know what it really says. And just a reminder, science changes. That's not a flaw. It's the whole point. I'll keep learning and evolving right along with it. Critical thinking is a legit superpower. This video is your cape. Let's fly. So have you ever heard somebody say, the research says, and then you're like, okay, but what research? And who did it? And are they even qualified to be saying anything about deadlifts, digestion, or dopamine? Science can feel like this secret language that only people with lab coats and 6 syllables in their job titles are allowed to speak, but it doesn't have to be that way. I'm here to show you how to read peer-reviewed studies, like the actual sciencey stuff, without needing a PhD, a translator, or a breakdown. This isn't about becoming a professional researcher. This is more about knowing enough to say, yeah, I can actually read the study. I don't need to just trust a headline. You've got curiosity, you've got a brain, that's more than enough. Let's nerd out beast style. So why bother reading the studies? Why should you care? Because misinformation is everywhere, especially in health and wellness. One person says seed oils are poison, another says they're totally fine. One person says carbs are the enemy, and another person says carbs are life. And then there's that person telling you to drink aged urine.
This is aged urine.
And then there's the rest of us that are like, please don't. It feels so chaotic on the socials. And it feels like a constant argument. If you ever go into those comment sections and you're like, okay, but like who do I trust? So instead of choosing your health path based on who yells the loudest on the internet, why don't we base it on evidence? This isn't about becoming a full-on scientist. It's more about becoming someone who can read the actual study, ask smart questions, and make empowered decisions without being bamboozled by buzzwords and wellness cults. Just saying. I have said this time and time again, and I will say it over and over again. Curiosity is a superpower, and once you learn how to decode these studies for yourself, it's kind of like becoming Batman. But instead of fighting crime, you're fighting confusion. So it's like basically Batman, but with like highlighters and a self-care routine. Okay, so there are 6 parts to a research paper. The first part is the title and abstract. The title tells you what the study's about, and the abstract, that's kind of like the trailer. It gives you the summary, like what they did, why they did it, what they found. And if it's confusing or sounds like it has nothing to do with real people in the real world, skip it. The next part is the introduction. Here's where the authors flex. They're basically saying, here's what we already know, and here's what we don't. They explain why they did the study, what they're hoping to answer, and sometimes they toss in fancy words like to make themselves sound cooler. Translation, this is the why you should care section. So the next part of the study is and are the methods. Okay, science nerd goggles on. Do you have nerd? I have nerd goggles. These are going to be my nerd goggles. But don't worry, I'll translate. The methods section is basically the play-by-play of how the researchers ran the experiment. So this is where they answer exactly what did we do, to whom, for how long, and how did we measure it. Okay, nerd goggles off, just for now. Here's what to look for. Who participated? Who participated? Was it 10 college students? 10,000 diverse adults? What did they do? Was it a survey, blood test, workout program, rat maze? Be specific. How long did it last? 1 day, 6 months? Timeline matters. And how did they measure stuff? Did they use medical tests, scales, apps, questionnaires? Some methods are actually more reliable than others. If the study sounds vague, biased, or oddly convenient, like the results would be great for a supplement company, raise an eyebrow. I can do that. Wait. Raise an eyebrow. Okay, I got it. I think I got it. Yeah. This is where we check if their recipe actually makes a real cake or just hot air. The next part of the study is the results. This is where the data lives. Tables, graphs, numbers. If you're not a stats nerd, that's totally okay. But here's what to look for. Big changes versus small changes. Was it actually significant or just barely noticeable? And don't worry about understanding every p-value. Just ask, did anything meaningful actually happen? The next part of the study is the discussion. This is where the scientists interpret the data. They say what they think it means, how it fits with other research, and what it could lead to next. Heads up. This is where they sometimes get a little bit too excited and jump to conclusions, so stay skeptical because their job is to explore and not exaggerate. The next part of the study, limitations. Yes, this is the honesty section. They tell you what could have gone wrong, what they couldn't control, and why their results might not apply to everyone. If a study doesn't list the limitations, that's a red flag. Nobody's perfect, not even science. The next part of the study is the conclusion and the references. Now, this is kind of where the scientists wrap it all up. They'll give you a quick summary of what they found, what it might mean, and sometimes where we go from here. And those references at the bottom, that's their receipts. It's a big list of the studies that they looked at, built on, or debated. If you're feeling extra curious or you just love going down rabbit holes like I do, you can dig into those studies too. So how do you actually read this thing without zoning out halfway through? Let's break it down step by step with reasons, because I'm not just going to throw steps at you like a Pinterest graphic. I can say hard things. Okay, number 1, skim the abstract. This gives you the elevator pitch. You'll find out the topic, what they did, and what they found out. It helps you decide if the study's even worth your time. Number 2, jump to the conclusion. Before diving into the weeds, check where they landed. It gives you the bigger picture, what they think they learned, and why it might matter. Number 3, if it still feels important, go back and check methods and results. This is where they tell you how they got there. Did the way they conducted this study actually support the conclusion? This is detective mode time. Number 4, highlight anything confusing. Don't just gloss over the weird words or phrases. Pause and flag them. You're building your science reading muscles. Just like when you go to the gym and you build those biceps. Yeah! Number 5, Google it. No shame. Seriously, scientists use Google too. Look up terms, acronyms, stats you don't understand. It's kind of how we learn. Number 6, ask yourself, does this apply to me? Maybe the study was done on elite athletes or 12 lab rats. Maybe it was short-term or super specific. Just because something's true in a study doesn't mean it automatically fits your life. The biggest tip, don't just assume that because it's published, it's perfect. Peer-reviewed research doesn't mean flawless. Read with curiosity, not blind trust. Why? Because curiosity is what? Tell me in the comments. What is curiosity? It's a superpower. Yeah, I said word. So because these research papers are not perfect and it is science and science is ever evolving, here's some red flags to watch for. Check who funded the study. Somewhere near the beginning or the end of the paper, usually like acknowledgments or conflict of interest section, you'll see a paid for the research. Why does this matter? Because if a study about a weight loss pill was funded by the company that sells that pill, we've got to raise an eyebrow. Hold on, I can do it again. It doesn't automatically mean the study is bad, but it does mean you should look a little bit closer and ask if there's any bias. The next red flag, tiny sample sizes. In this case, size matters. I'm okay. If a study only included 10 people or 6 rats, that's kind of not enough to confidently say this works for everyone. Small samples can give skewed results or just be a fluke. The next red flag, big headlines and vague data. If a study is shouting from the rooftops with a big clickbait headline, but then actual numbers don't back it up, that's kind of a problem. Flashy titles can make weak results sound groundbreaking. Always check the data under the hood before buying into the hype. For example, you might have seen headlines claiming that sugar is more addictive than cocaine. Sounds wild, right? And I'm sure you've heard this before. But what most people don't hear, and most people have not looked into themselves, is that the rats in the study were actually starved before given sugar. So of course, they're going to go for the sweet stuff. Please go look into that study. So context matters. Don't let dramatic headlines trick you into thinking the science says something it doesn't. The next red flag to look for, no control group. Without a control group, we can't tell if the outcome was due to the intervention or just random chance. It's kind of like doing an experiment without a baseline. There's no comparison. The next red flag, industry funded with no transparency. What does that mean, Caitlin Noel? If funding comes from a company that benefits from the result, like a supplement brand or a pharma company, and that's not disclosed or addressed, red flag, major bias. Bias is real, y'all. Bias is real. The last red flag to look for, and this is kind of a big one, they didn't list the limitations. Every single study has flaws, and if the authors don't mention any, either they didn't think critically about their own work, or they didn't want you to think critically about their work. So if there's one thing I hope you walk away with today, it's this. Science isn't a secret club. You don't need a white coat. You don't need a fancy degree to ask questions, challenge assumptions, or understand the basics of a study. You just need what? You just need what? What's your superpower? Curiosity. And maybe a highlighter. So the next time someone online yells, "Science says," you'll be ready with, "Cool, show me the study." And more importantly, you'll actually know how to read it. And here's another piece. It's completely free to stay kind about it. You can challenge ideas without dragging people, because curiosity plus compassion, that's the real flex. If there's a study you're curious about, drop it in the comments and maybe I'll break it down in a future video. And if this episode made you feel like the confident, critical thinking beast you truly are, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Stay curious, stay smart, and always, always, always unveil the beautiful beast within you, even in your brain. Bye.